This Tuesday is No, I Won't, Toddler Defiance and Positive Discipline. My name is Amy Gray. I'm the Education Manager at the New Children's Museum. I'm so excited to be joined by our special guest, Debbie Zeichner, who is a licensed social worker and certified parenting educator and coach. Thank you, Debbie, for being here.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. It's so nice to be here. I see somebody's trying to tell me in the chat how to see more participants, but it's not working. But anyway, it's so nice to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited. This is probably one of my favorite topics to talk about. So I couldn't be more thrilled to be here. So thank you.
And thank you all for joining us. I'm so excited for those who haven't met Debbie, to introduce you to her. Debbie and I first met in the fall of 2019 at our Toddler Fest event. And then shortly after that, she hosted a workshop on positive discipline for preschoolers. And at the time, I had an almost 3-year-old and an almost 1-year-old. So that whole last year had been, for my husband and I, somewhat of a challenge as soon as the new baby came into the home. And so we had a lot of questions. I was really looking for some support on child rearing and just a way to connect with my older son and to figure out a way to communicate better. And so I was so glad that I joined the class, because what I got from it, in addition to just some skills and some tools, was a real better understanding of how I can communicate with him. And I knew after that, Debbie, that I wanted to figure out a way to connect you more with the museum, to introduce you and share your wisdom and you with our caregiver and family audience. So I'm really excited that we can host today's session and to have you here and to have everybody get a chance to talk with you.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
So a few housekeeping pieces before we launch in. Debbie and I will take a little time to introduce ourselves, and Debbie will talk a little bit about her practice, but the majority of the time we'll spend on group discussion. So if you have questions that are brewing, you can actually write those down. You can share them in the chat room. We will have Tomoko Kuta, who's here with us, our museum deputy director.
Hi, everyone.
She's going to moderate the chat room. So feel free to just send those questions in, and then at the end, Tomoko will help us to kind of summarize so that Debbie can speak to as much as possible, and you all can share as well. This session is being recorded, so this will be recorded, and then we'll offer it on our museum website. That will be happening a couple of days from now, so check the website and it will be there. Please, while you're listening, if you can, mute your microphones just to kind of tune out the ambient sound. But if you would like to share yourself with your video, please do, and anyone who's with you. Your children, your pets, anyone who's joining you in your household. I typically have my two kind of running around and are in a lot of Zoom meetings with me. So today's kind of an exception. And I mentioned the chat box. Thanks again to Tomoko for, sorry about that, for monitoring that. And if after this presentation you have a desire to send us more questions, or maybe questions for Debbie, or you would just like to stay in touch, because we're really hoping that this fosters a connection for you, please just email education@thinkplaycreate.org. We'll have that up again at the end of the presentation, and we'd love to hear from you. We have a few very simple goals for today. Debbie and I want to talk and introduce ourselves. Want to give Debbie some time to talk about the principles of positive discipline and really how that can support families in need, especially right now with all that is going on in our world. I am not an expert. I'm really glad to have Debbie here, but I hope to offer some of my real life experiences to share what's happening in my household, what I have tried to sort of navigate myself and with my husband, and to share that to hopefully connect with all of you and maybe inspire some questions you may have. And on that note, again, we'll save a lot of our time today for our group sharing and Q&A with Debbie. So thank you for sending questions along the way or at the end when we begin that piece of the presentation. Right now, though, we'd love to know who's with us. If you would like to introduce yourself via the chat box, here are some questions you can answer. We'd love to hear more about who's here and just to to say hello to you. I also have listed here a couple of questions that you may want to ponder while the discussion is happening, and then later to kind of ask yourself or to ask Debbie. These are things that I was thinking about as I was taking notes. So what behavior challenges have you experienced with your toddler or toddlers? And then what approaches and parenting tools have worked well for you and your family? Personally, I think it's important, and I have a feeling Debbie would second this, that there's a lot I'm sure we want to ask about what to do when this happens. But at the same time, I hope have had some successes, and it's great to reflect on those and to share them with each other. And this is what this is about as well, to really take the time to as a community, support one another with that kind of information. I want to introduce myself really quickly. Again, I'm the education manager at the New Children's Museum. I've been there for 5 years now. I love my job, and I love that it gives me a chance to work with families. My own family is featured here. This is my wild and wonderful family. My husband, Bo, he works with computers, so he's been very busy lately. And he also, I would say, has, like me, had a lot of experiences, especially in the last few weeks, where we just kind of feel stumped. Not sure quite how to help and support our children who are clearly responding to the situation of being housebound here 24/7, who are having an experience of, why are things so different? And it's hard for us to know how to respond to them, and how do you explain that to a 3-year-old? I'm sure Debbie can help us with that when we get to that part of the presentation. I'm excited to hear. And this is a little bit of information on my 2 boys. They're very different, which I love. I would describe Ollie, my 3-year-old, as spirited. So he's strong-willed, he's passionate, he's incredibly captivating. He's also been kind of my shadow since birth, and that was great until his little brother came along, and then it made it pretty hard for him. So some of the behavior we were dealing with wasn't really surprising, and we've been trying to support him in that. Whereas Charlie, my littler one, who's 15 months, he's very relaxed. He's very pretty independent, which has been helpful for me. He's also not as interested in mama. He's a lot more interested in his big brother. So it's been nice for him to have more time with him in these last few weeks. And then I'll just share that for me, I shared some details about myself, but I would unfortunately describe myself as a bit of a perfectionist. And when it comes to parenting, that's been hard. It means that when I'm up against a situation that I don't know how to handle, I feel really badly about it. And I feel that I don't know how best to support my children. And it's hard when you feel like you're getting it wrong. So I don't know if some of you feel that way. I know I'm just confessing that I have. And I will say that one of the things I love about positive discipline, and some of what I've learned from Debbie, is to be forgiving and understanding not only of your children, but of yourself as a caregiver, to remember that we're all learning, we're on a journey together. And I've really appreciated that about Debbie. And with that, I think I will hand the mic over to her to introduce herself and talk a little bit more about her practice.
Oh, thank you. Well, I will join you in saying that I am also a recovering perfectionist. So I think it's like alive and well in so many of us. So I think we just have to embrace it and know that there's some ways to deal with it. So I share that with you, Amy. So thank you. So hi, everyone. So I am, as Amy said, I'm a parent coach, a licensed clinical social worker. I'm also a mindfulness facilitator. And I love what I do. I'm truly passionate about this work, about working with parents, about supporting parents. I love working with parents of preschoolers and toddlers. It's like my favorite age group. And I would say that my specialty is really in power struggles. That's my favorite thing to work with. I am a certified positive discipline parent educator. I'm also certified in mindfulness. And I really got into this work because I was clueless as a new mom. Prior to becoming a parent coach, I had a psychotherapy practice. And I always say I was the perfect parent until I had kids. Then I had kids and everything kind of went out the window. And I always say that we tend to parent either how we were parented or we go in the exact opposite direction. And I come from a family of yellers and lecturers. So that was kind of my go-to, but I swore up and down I would never be the yelling type. Then I had my kids, and that's exactly what happened. Was I became the yelling type, which is when I knew that I needed to change. I was just feeling really crappy at the end of most every day. And I'm so thankful that I did stumble upon positive discipline. I dove into positive parenting and mindfulness and positive discipline to really support parents after seeing how much it transformed myself, my relationship with myself, and also my relationship with my family. So it really is exciting to be here. I do have 2 kiddos of my own. I have a 13-year-old son named Evan, and my daughter Chloe will be 11. She'll have a quarantine birthday. She'll be 11 on Sunday, and they really are. They are 2 strong-willed kiddos. So I love them for that. I think it's great that they have that within them, and it drives me crazy all at the same time. So it's bittersweet, but it is what it is, and I'm grateful to them because I truly feel like they're my biggest teachers. So positive discipline. So let's talk a little bit about positive discipline. So just in a nutshell, because we could spend a whole hour just on this, really positive discipline is a parenting model that's based on encouragement, empowerment, and mutual respect. It's really a model that helps parents learn how to be both kind and firm at the same time. So it's not all kind, which is permissive parenting, no limits and boundaries, anything goes. It's not all firm, which is authoritarian parenting, which is you're going to do it my way or else. Mm-hmm. It's what we call authoritative or democratic. And it's really based on helping parents find solutions to misbehavior instead of using or relying on consequences or punishment. And so we can talk, and we'll kind of talk probably as we go through today, what kind and firm means, but I know parents often ask me like to give an example, and I'm all about examples. So to just give you a quick example, kind and firm really is also about allowing our child to feel what they feel. What our child feels isn't good or bad or right or wrong. That's just where they are, right? So we allow feelings, we limit behaviors. So let's say one child hits another child. It might sound something like, kind and firm might sound something like, I can see that you're really angry and frustrated. When your little brother took that toy away from you, that made you so mad. It made you so mad that you wanted to hit. I know that you're so angry, and I can't let you hit. In our family, we keep our hands to ourselves. So you acknowledge your child, which is the kindness part. You acknowledge them, you validate them. The firmness is that you're still going to hold the limit, that in our family, it's not okay to hit. In our family, we use gentle hands. So that's really kind of the foundation of positive discipline. What I love, one more thing I'll say, what I love most about positive discipline is that it's really aimed at helping our kids choose to do the right thing when no one is watching, forcing, or bribing. And that's huge. I mean, that's a huge paradigm shift. I know it was for me, for many of us, especially those, raised with consequences, punishment, rewards, which are just ways not necessarily of building our child's intrinsic motivation. So that's a bit about positive discipline.
Debbie, I remember after your class, I had learned in your workshop that in order to kind of help my 3-year-old to kind of acknowledge limits and to make a shift when we needed to transition from one thing to another, mm-hmm. that giving him a heads up, but also kind of negotiating with him was, maybe that's the wrong word, but was helpful. So I went home and I saw that my 3-year-old was still awake, and it was 9 or 9:30, which was later than it should have been. And he was watching his favorite movie. And I said, okay, I'm going to talk to him about this. And I said, Oliver, I see that you're watching your favorite movie. I know that it's going to be hard for you to stop watching it and go to bed. It is late, and I want to make sure you get good sleep so that you can be, ready to play again tomorrow. I said, what feels like the right amount of time for you to watch and then stop? And he said, I don't know, Mom. He's 3. He's like, I don't know. I want to watch the whole movie. I said, okay, let's pick a favorite part and see if we can get to that. And that was, I knew there was a favorite part about 10 minutes ahead. I said, so let's see about that. And he said, okay. And we actually shook on it and agreed.
Mm-hmm.
And then shockingly to me, 10 minutes later, when he loves Toy Story, when Mr. Potato Head turned into a cucumber, he was ready and he stood up on his own and he walked into his room. And I'm still floored by that because that had not been something I'd experienced before with him. It usually had been a struggle. So it was really nice. I don't know if I navigated that perfectly, but it was nice to know that we felt like in union with what was happening, and that he felt that he had some of the power in what was happening next for him.
Well, that was going to be my question for you. My question was going to be, so what do you think his experience was? You know, because so often as parents, we're so focused on our agenda, what we need to happen on our time at this time. It's all about like me, I. We're so focused on ourselves. And yet we forget that we have these little people who also pretty much have agendas of their own. They want to finish building, they want to finish coloring, they want to finish watching their favorite movie. And so often, as I talk about in my power struggles class, these power struggles happen when we put our agenda ahead of our child's agenda. And when we can meet our child where they are and recognize that their agenda is just as important to them as ours is to us, that's when the magic happens. That's how we build and gain cooperation, because it also allows our child to feel connected. So by you going to your child and saying, I know how much you loved this movie, it's like now he feels seen, heard, understood, and accepted, just even in that. Because more often than not, what is our typical, like you, I mean, even just thinking about it, I know parents think about this. Let's say you went out, you came home, maybe you were expecting your child to be asleep. I mean, you went out when you could go out. I know you can't go out now,
yeah,
but let's take it back, right? Right. So you go out, you come home, you're like, oh, I'm gonna have the night to myself. My kids are gonna be sleeping. You get home and your kid is awake. I know for me, I'd be like, oh,
yeah,
no, like,
yeah,
where's my time, right? So then it's like, then we tend to parent from that place. Mm-hmm. So if we can take that pause, we can create that space, right? Ask ourselves, okay, how do I want to show up right now? Because if I show up and say, oh, what are you doing? You know it's past your bedtime. You have to go to bed. Let's go, right? Like already we're going to send our child into this place where the last thing they're going to want to do is listen and cooperate and say, oh, okay, mom, sure, no problem. Let me turn this off now, right? So it's so important for us to really recognize the role that we play, and knowing that it really does start with us. And probably one of the most powerful questions that I continue to ask myself every day, whether it be in relationship to my spouse or in relationship to my kids or in just relationship in general, is, you know, how am I showing up right now? So what is my tone of voice? What is my body language? What are my nonverbals? Because when I show up with the, oh, what are you doing? That's pretty much where my child's going to go. Versus if I can show up and respond versus react, respond in the way, Amy, that you described, it keeps our child on our same level, right? On that same level of calmness, which is really important for when we want to gain that cooperation. So I hope that's helpful, just as a quick little tidbit. And I'm so glad that you shared that, Amy, because it's you also talked about making agreements ahead of time, which we can talk and touch on as well. But I think that's really important. I'm glad to hear. See, yay, you had a success. That's awesome.
I know. Thank you for your help. I really appreciate it. And it really taught me something.
Yeah.
And I listed here just some of the realities of just the honest realities of our home in the last few weeks. Some of the behaviors that we've been facing. And it's not surprising, as I said, you know, we know that especially our older one, is his entire routine has changed. And the things he used to be able to do, he can't do. He's not in school. That had just been going really well. And I just wanted to share these mostly. I'm not going to hit on any of them too long. I just wanted to share them because, again, for those who are here with us today, I want to say these are my experiences. I don't know if they're yours as well, but know that this is all that I'm facing right now. And I'm so glad, Debbie, that you're here to help all of us kind of get through this. And I imagine that right now, I know you're talking with a lot of caregivers, and I know you're hearing a lot of experiences from them. Are there kind of big patterns that you're hearing in terms of what the situation is right now for caregivers and all of the kind of emotional trials that are happening within families?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many common threads across the board. So while we're not all in the same boat because every family is so different and what one family is struggling with, another family isn't struggling with, I would say across the board, there's certainly a lot of commonalities. I mean, I think parents are really struggling with the work-life balance, with taking time for themselves. There's so much parent guilt, mom guilt, I'm hearing a lot about, right? I would just say it's balancing. It's everything on this list. I mean, it's the tantrums that are showing up more because kids are off the routine, because there's so much uncertainty and there's anxiety floating around, and our kids really can feel and pick up on our stress. They're like these little sponges. And so while it's no fault of our own, or it's not about blame or shame, it's just recognizing that our kids really do pick up on what we're experiencing. And so for us, learning how to manage our own stress and take care of ourselves, that, you know, self-care, it's really critical to our emotional and physical well-being, as well as that of our children. So it's really all of it. It's the financial insecurity that a lot of parents are feeling, and then, you know, just how that trickles down and translates into how we are able to show up for our kids. It's tricky.
Well, I want to shift gears here and open the floor to all of our participants who came today. Thank you again for being here. If you joined a little later in the presentation and you'd like to introduce yourself, again, we're going to do all that via the chat room as a starting point. Here are some of the things you can share with us. And then questions, if you have them, please send them to the chat room. If you'd like to share something privately you don't want everyone to view, you can send that directly to our moderator, Tomoko Kuta, and she will share it with the group if you'd like. So I'm going to turn the floor over to our guest today and to Debbie to field those questions. I'll chime in as I can.
Great. And then would it be okay if there are some people who do want to speak up? That way they don't have to go. Right now the chat box is pretty quiet. So if people just, you know, take advantage of this moment and just speak up, that'd be great.
That'd be great.
View options. Let's see if I can. Does anyone have a question that they want to? I'm just still trying to figure out how I can see everybody, but I'm still not able to figure out. I don't have a little brother, but I'm open to questions. If you just want to unmute yourself and ask away, I'm happy to address anything on your mind.
Yeah. Debbie, while there is a share going on, it's possible to see everyone. So yeah, you've got the right view. Yeah.
Okay, good.
I'll ask a question. Hi, I'm Rebecca.
Hi.
And
hi, Rebecca.
Nice to see you. And we have
nice
a recently turned 2-year-old daughter who's very strong-willed and very opinionated, just like both of her parents. The biggest thing we have going on with her right now that we've been struggling with and looking for solutions for and having some successes in some places is things that are mandatory. Like, we'll give her choices and she's great with choices when there are choices available, but things like washing your hands, brushing your teeth before you go to bed, like things that are just like, you have to do this, there's not a choice. And so that's the thing we've been struggling with, like power struggles, and she'll get in, she's really good at like playing pushing my husband's buttons, not so much with me, but
you froze up for a second, Rebecca.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
You froze up for a second. She's really good. She's really good at power struggles. And then
with my husband especially, like she's really good at pushing his buttons and getting him to a point where he's extremely frustrated with her very quickly. And so I'm always like, we're big fans of like the positive parenting approach. And I'm always looking for ideas, especially right now with her, of like how we can get her to be more on board with doing things that there's just not a choice.
Yeah. So I know that you said that there are some things that you've tried that have been successful. You want to tell me maybe some things that you've tried that have been successful, so I know what you've tried and then I can see what I can add to your toolbox?
Sure. So like the struggle we had with her for a while was brushing her teeth. And what we finally landed on was just, we always let her watch a few minutes of like whatever her favorite show is or movie is right before she goes to bed, just to kind of wind down a little. And so we started shifting bedtime routine to like we do these things in this order to just like doing them while she's watching her show. That way she's kind of distracted and happy rather than, and like if she kind of won't comply with us, we'll say like, okay, well, we're going to pause the movie until you're, willing to brush your teeth. And that always works because she really wants the movie. So it feels like bribery, but it's successful and it avoids the struggle. So that's the biggest thing we found successful for that. And I haven't really found a solution for like times when she just like has to wash her hands because like, let's face it, we all do these days.
Yeah, I know. And that's a really hard one. I mean, I think oftentimes, our kid, here's what's important to know is that really when we think about what motivates behavior, our kids really, we all have these basic needs that we're trying to get met. We have a need to feel a sense of belonging and connection. We have a need to feel a sense of significance, that we matter, that we're valued, that we have something meaningful to contribute. We have a need for attention, and we also have a need for power and control. And especially for toddlers, they are developing a sense of autonomy. And so it is so important for them to have this sense, and that we allow them to have this sense of autonomy and power and control. There was something I was going to add to that really quickly. Oh, so oftentimes that's why we see power struggles around things over which we as parents have no control, like eating, sleeping, potty training, brushing the teeth for the most part, right? Are things that really ultimately a child has full control over. That's why the word no really shows up at this age. No is just a word. It's just two letters strung together. What happens is that when a child says no, we as parents tend to have this reaction. No, what do you mean? Like we kind of go to this place. And so all of a sudden that no takes on a lot of power. And what they're looking for is to feel a sense of power because there's so many areas of their lives where they don't have it. So we want to understand that for one, that as much as we want her to brush her teeth and do all these things, and I totally get it, we need to understand where she's coming from, right? Because understanding where she's coming from allows us to approach it in a different way. So, there's several different things that you can do. I always say, when in doubt, use empathy or humor. And oftentimes, as I was saying when I was responding to something that Amy said, that ultimately at the end of the day, all of us, and our kids included, want to feel seen, heard, understood, and accepted. So those times where your daughter says, no, I don't want to brush my teeth. Oh, I know. You don't like brushing your teeth. Gosh, you wish you didn't have to brush. Wouldn't it be so amazing if we didn't brush our teeth? What do you think would happen? Like, what would show up on my teeth? What do you think, right? Like, you kind of go to this playful place with them, acknowledging that it's not fun and it's not easy, right? Especially because typically, more often than not, we're asking our child we're making a request of our child when they're really engrossed or engaged in something, right? So let's say in this case, she's watching her favorite movie. So here we are, she's totally engrossed in something. She's totally engaged in it. She's having so much fun. We're asking her to stop doing something that she's really engaged in to go do something that she really doesn't want to do. And who wants to do that? I mean, as adults, we don't want to do that, right? I mean, even being told like we can't go out of our houses, it's like we naturally resist it. So that's a really normal, natural reaction. So I always say, start by acknowledging, really connect with your child. I know, I get it. You really wish that you didn't have to brush your teeth. Sometimes you wish you could skip it. I understand. And it's time to brush our teeth. So your choices are, you can brush them with in this room, or you can brush them in my room, or you can brush my teeth first and then right. So acknowledging where your child is, we call it connection before correction. So acknowledging where your child is, and then offering choices. And the importance of offering those choices is to meet a child's need for significance. Because when you ask your child or you offer your child a choice, do you want the red cup or the blue cup? That meets a child's need for significance. As in, oh, you care what I think? Like, I get to pick? Like, I have a say? Oh my God. Kids love to give their ideas.
Can I interrupt you for a second?
Yeah.
What happens when you offer them the choice and they choose one thing and then they still won't do it? Because like, that's what we were doing with the teeth brushing for a while. We were saying, okay, do you want to brush in your room or in the bathroom? And she would pick the bathroom, but then we would have to like lock her in there and like struggle with it.
Yeah. So that's where I would go back and I would empathize with her. So I would say, I know, right? Because so often what happens is she's like, she might say, or a child might say, no, I don't want to do that. And then what happens is that they're in their emotional brain. So if you think of the brain has a right side and the left side, they go into their emotional brain, right? Which is the right side of their brain. the left side of the brain, which is the logical side of the brain, isn't anywhere near developed. The logical side of the brain is where they can problem solve, think rationally, have impulse control and emotional regulation, right? That part of their brain won't be developed until early adulthood. And so often when they're in their emotional brain, we as adults come at them with our logical brain. But you need to brush your teeth, and you know what the doctor said. Like, we come at them with all this like lecture. They're in their emotional brain, and so they can't hear any of what we're telling them. So it's so important that we meet them where they are, and that's why that empathy and that acknowledgement and that validating how they feel is so important. So they may not get exactly what they want. Like, she may not, you know, recognize at some point she's going to have to brush her teeth, but she gets a parent who understands her. So in those cases, you know, the last thing that you can really do is say, oh, what should we do? I need your help. You don't want to brush your teeth. I really need your teeth brushed because you remember what the dentist said. What should we do? I'm stuck. And it is amazing. I'll tell you, parents will always think, oh, my child won't know what to say, or they'll say, it's amazing what kids come up with when we give them the opportunity. 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, like they have these amazing ideas. So that would be sort of another option that you have if she's really, you know, going back and forth with you, is just to say, oh, I really need your help. I know you have such good ideas. What should we do? And she could say, well, I just want to get to this point in my movie where, you know, or I'll do a 2-minute, or, you know, and then you can say, oh, thank you so much. That's a great idea. Yes, let's try that. Okay. And then as soon as she brushes her teeth, you can say, thank you so much for listening. That made it so easy. Look at that. Now we have more time for books.
Yeah.
So acknowledge the time that she does listen, right? Acknowledge the good, look for the good, and then you'll start to see more of that behavior. But just really appreciate that no comes from a very developmental need to feel that sense of autonomy.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Other questions?
I have a question. This is Erin. Hi, Debbie.
Erin. Hi.
So one of the things that's been a challenge for us as we're in the home, so I have a 4-year-old and a 5-month-old, both girls, is that now, you know, just to budget and because of what's going on, like, we've suspended our housekeeper. So we are now, you know, doing all of that work ourselves around the house. And I'm trying to figure out the best way to engage my 4-year-old in cleaning around the house. And so curious about what's the right age? How old does a toddler need to be able to help out around the house? And B, any suggestions for how to make that less stressful? Because honestly, right now, it takes me more time to like ask her again and again and again to do a thing than if I just did it myself. Sure. So I'm struggling with, you know, is it even worth trying to get her to help, or do I just go, ah?
Yes, no, it is. It definitely, you said she's 4, yes?
Yes.
She's 4, okay. Yeah, I mean, I would say absolutely even 2-year-olds can help. They can put things, you know, take blocks and put them away. I mean, so yes, I think it's actually a beautiful opportunity to start teaching responsibility from an early age. I think so much of what it comes down to is making it fun and making it playful. I think so often as we feel so stressed about, you know, the laundry list of things, not to mention the laundry, but the laundry list of things that has to happen in order to get the house clean, like we start to feel overwhelmed, and then we sort of parent from that place. And so our anxiety can come across, and that makes it a little more off-putting for our kids. So just thinking about how you can make it fun. And what I would say too is that it will be important to take some time for training. So that's like the first step is, you know, kind of think about some things that she could do and then make it fun. And I always say, give her a title, like she could be the laundry manager or queen of the, you know, kitchen trash, you know, like give them like a fun, so it makes it really fun because again, she has a need to connect with you. And she has a need to feel significant, that she is contributing something that's meaningful, right? And then I would say, like, just say, you can even ask her, you know, questions, like even asking more than you tell. You know, should we clean with the music on or should we clean in silence? Or should we have a dance party before we clean or a dance party after we clean? You know, like little ways of getting her engaged like that. And I would start off with, God, I really need your help. You know, here are the things I need to get done. Which of these 2 things or which of these 3 things would you like to pick? And we can do it together. I can help you. You can do it on your, right? So really giving her a lot of flexibility and some options. Like you give her what the choices are, and then let her pick and decide, and you're okay with any of those choices. And look for the way to make it fun, right? Because her language, all of our kids' language, especially at this age, is play. And oftentimes our kids are speaking play and we're speaking adults. And that's why we're not communicating very well, right? They can't really understand us and we can't really understand them. So I would say focus on how can you make it fun, give her a job to do, like with a title, enlist her help. You know, I really need your help with these things, and offer her those choices. And that's where I would start from there. How does that sound, Erin?
I love the title idea. That's so cute. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm going to jump in. I saw a question come in through the chat box, and this is a sensitive one. Someone, you know, and this may be, you know, for a few people, how to answer questions about daddy or mommy losing his job without transferring anxiety, you know, to.
Oh, you know what, Tamiko, I didn't get the whole question. I'm sorry.
Let me raise my volume here. So how to answer questions about daddy or mommy losing their job without transferring, you know, one's own anxieties to the kids.
Oh, got it. So I guess I would be interested to know a little bit more. One, how old the child is, and is the child asking the question, did you lose? I think I need a little more information in order to be able to answer that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't have them right now. It may come in through the chat box.
Okay.
Maybe we could assume it's a young child, since I think most of the people here have toddlers.
Yeah, I just don't know if it's, okay, yeah. You know, I would say that oftentimes with young children, as far as some of the questions that come in, less is often more. And oftentimes asking our child what they know or what they think or what they thought they heard. So I don't know if this is something that the child asks their parent, you know, if the child is fearful that the parent is going to lose their job. I just want to know a little bit more in order to be able to answer it in the best way that I can.
I have a little bit more information as it comes in.
Okay.
Phenomena of the chat box. There seems to be 3 girls, a range of ages. The youngest is 3, and then there's a 5-year-old and a 14-year-old. Mm-hmm. And the 14-year-old is obviously aware enough and shares it with the little guys, with the little girls. Mm-hmm. I think maybe that's where some of the concern is coming from.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think it's really just, you know, our kids do pick up on our stress and our anxiety, and at the same time, you're human. And so I think really just being, you know, as open and honest as you think your kids are ready for. They're all at such different ages. But I think when the questions come in, is just really focusing on the fact that they're safe, you know, that everybody's safe and that everybody's okay, and that the family is the most important thing right now, and that's where the focus is, and that mommy or daddy is going to be doing their best to find a job that they love. And I would really just kind of put the focus on that, focusing on what the family is doing to move forward, and just on the fact on safety. Oftentimes the anxiety around losing the job is coming from this place of insecurity. So I think we want to reassure the child that they're safe, that they're okay, mommy or daddy aren't going anywhere, and that you know, the family's going to work together as a team, and mommy and daddy will be able to figure out what they need to figure out. I hope that helps a bit.
Great, thank you. And then I just got another question. It says, our struggle has been with my husband both needing to still work, and our 3-year-old son is alone by himself a lot during the day. So when I finally do have the time to play, he's angry. We were never really big on time until now, you know, and really, you know, so they can just work, or when the tablet, or I'm sorry, we were never too big on time until now, just so we can work. And then I think also access to the tablet. Sorry, I'm having a little trouble understanding the last
No,
part of
it's
the
okay.
question.
And you know what? You're coming in and out. Let me see if I can look at the chat.
It's coming to me privately, so let me send it to you.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Can you hear me better now? I always have problems with sound.
It's not that I can't hear you. It's that it's freezing up a little bit when you're talking. I don't know if other people are experiencing that, but
So it's often better when my video's not running. So enjoy the skyline of New York City. So the question was, our struggle has been with my husband and I still needing to work from home. Our three-year-old son is by himself a lot during the day. So when I do have the time to play with him, he pushes me away and is angry. We were never too big on screen time until now, just so we can work. So when the tablet or TV is turned off.
Yeah, so this is really hard. And I think that this is one of the biggest struggles that so many of us are dealing with. I know, Amy, you're dealing with this too. Yeah. And I'd love to have you chime in here too, Amy, to kind of give your experience. But I would say, you know, initially what I want to say is that finding a way to carve out some time to check in and create these moments of connection throughout the day will be really, really helpful. I think of them as connection breaks. Mm-hmm. So, and I don't know if it's depending, you know, I feel like, or from what I'm hearing from many parents right now, that so many employers are being very flexible, very open and understanding with what families are really having to struggle with. So I don't know if it's possible for you and or your husband to kind of even take turns with just checking in with your child. And you know what, that connection time, that mini check-in doesn't even have to be very long. It could be like 5 minutes, it could be 10 minutes, it could be 15 minutes, but just where your child feels seen and acknowledged, right? Because what's happening is that he or she is feeling really disconnected. And I think that the one thing that that's why that anger and aggression is coming out, that it's not really, it's part anger and it's part kind of fear and anxiety and sadness too, right? And anger, obviously. But I think I would aim to see if you can create some connection breaks throughout the day, whatever that might look like. There's not one right answer, but that would be one of the suggestions that I would have. Amy, do you want to add anything there?
Yeah, I would just say that this, I can definitely relate that this was actually a big topic for one of our previous True Tuesdays. Just talking about the juggle of now working from home and being a caregiver at home and having your child understand that you can't play now all the time. So one of the things that I shared in the last session when we talked about this was that Ollie and I take play breaks. So just as you were saying, we take play breaks, and he understands that those breaks, when we are taking them, that they're all about playing. I try to focus on him. I've really had to shift my way of working, and thankfully I have a very supportive supervisor and organization with which I work that understands the needs of families. And so I feel fortunate that I've just had to shift what my schedule looks like and carve out specific times in the day when I know that we're going to take that time together. We've also carved out some dedicated time for lunch and some dedicated time for breakfast in the morning. So there's that routine that's established, but there's also these little 15, 20-minute play breaks that are good for both of us, to be honest. I need it as much as he does. And, you know, we play a lot of games that he sets the idea for, and I just kind of follow. And it's been nice to be able to have those moments with him, but I'll agree, it's a challenge, it's not easy, and he's not always satisfied.
Yeah, that's hard. It's really hard. And so I think even, I love those. And I think sometimes it's even just acknowledging, sitting with your child and just acknowledging, you know what, it's so hard. Like, you wish mommy could play with you right now. You wish daddy could play with you right now. And it's so hard when mommy has to work. I understand. Let's plan. So when we do have our time together, what do you want to do? Let's pick something out that you and I are just going to do, like even creating and giving your child something to look forward to. Maybe you say, you know, show on a clock when that's going to happen, or after this show, you know, if you set them up with a particular show that they're watching and say, as soon as that is over, I'm all yours. For some parents, I know I've been recommending even taking like a yoga mat or just some kind of mat and having it near you with different activities that your child can do, so they can do their work while you do your work. Maybe that's coloring, maybe that's building. You ask them, I want you to do your work and, talk about what needs to happen as far as using our quiet voices, our inside voices, and, kind of setting up some of those parameters there. But kids love to model what we're doing, right? So see if you can almost recreate their own workstation, like your workstation is another idea, so that they can be near you. And that would also give them a chance to maybe not be on the screen the whole time. And listen, and you have to do what you have to do. So I want to make sure that you're being kind to yourself and not being hard on yourself for this, because this is just how things are. And this is really, really hard. So some days it's going to go beautifully and other days it's not. And it's okay. It's absolutely okay. Our kids are so resilient. And I just really want you to focus on doing the very best that you can. And I hope that helps with your question.
Thank you, Debbie.
Yeah.
Another question has popped into the box. Any tips on how to implement giving choices, validating and utilizing positive discipline with young toddlers who can't verbally express themselves very well? My son is 20 months. For example, him wanting to run into the street and not listening, but being defiant when I tell him no.
Okay, so for one, what I would say is just preventatively is to be mindful of using no or don't or stop. We want to really reserve our no's for when we really need them, as in the event of a child running into the street. So what I mean by that is that we want to focus on asking for the behavior that we want. So if a child is jumping on the bed, instead of saying, stop jumping on the bed, we want to say, please keep your feet on the floor. If a child is throwing food, we want to say, food stays on the tray. If a child is hitting, please, in our family, we keep our hands to ourselves. So really focus on asking for the behavior that you want versus stop hitting, don't, right? Because if they hear it, then when you really need it, it's much less powerful. So that would be one small shift that I would make as far as that is concerned. It's really tricky, especially when they are pre-verbal. One of the things that I like to do is, again, it uses and utilizes play. So, and I don't know if your child can, I think I used to play with my kids at this age, but like red light, green light, where you kind of play red light, green light and teach them when it's green, they can go. And when it's red, they have to stop, right? So even just do a lot of playing red light and green light, and then so that's a way of teaching them what you mean when you say stop or red light, so that they learn red light means stop. And then before you go outside, you can say, when we go outside, we're going to be playing red light, green light. So when I say green light, it's okay to go. When I say red light, that means to stop. And you might even say, what does that mean? And they can even hold up a hand, or maybe that you guys come up with like a hand gesture of what stop means. So that would be one way that you could do that. And then it's just going to be practice. It's just practice. And as they grow and they mature, eventually they won't run into the street anymore. So one thing is to remind yourself, okay, my child's acting like a 2-year-old because he is a 2-year-old. This won't last forever. I know eventually he will be able to stop, because he will. It's just a phase. Okay, so you will get through it, I promise. But those would be a few tips that I would have for dealing with that behavior. Okay.
I actually had a question.
Yes.
So in regards to having multiple ages, so we actually in our family have a 1-year-old son and then a 3-year-old daughter. And then we also have a 19-year-old that came home from college early. Mm. So those are like all completely different stages of life. Mm-hmm. And speaking of which, I hear the 1-year-old now. But anyways, yeah, so I'm having it's funny because I'm a stay-at-home mom, and a lot of this stuff is new, given that my older is a stepson and then the other are biological. And I think the quarantine is beneficial because it keeps me home rather than at classes and other kind of distracting things that usually happen. But the other thing is it's become very evident like where my struggles are, and the issue that I'm having is like feeling that I'm fulfilling like engagement with all of them. Specifically, I would say the people that get the shaft the most are the 1-year-old as well as the 19-year-old, because and this is kind of obvious, but the toddler takes the most time, and engagement really. Mm-hmm. So how do you like shift? This is a very a multi-pronged question, but how do you like shift your focus effectively so that you feel like you're engaging with everyone and not necessarily just ignoring the people that don't need the, that don't make as much noise?
Yeah, I mean, I would say thank you, Heidi, for your question. And I see some shaking heads, so I know that you're not alone in this. It's hard because, we're one person. And so I think first and foremost, it's so important that you are kind and compassionate to yourself, because you can't be everything to everybody at all times. And what you're going to see and what you're going to find, as I'm sure you already do, is that each of your children will have different needs at different times. Sometimes it feels like it's all at the same time. So I hear that. And I think really what it's about is being very intentional. So setting an intention to be able to spend a bit of one-on-one time. We call it, in positive discipline, we call it special time. So it's one-on-one time where there's no sibling who's going to be around. You're not on a screen, you're not distracted, but where your child gets 100% of your time. And seeing where in your day, and each day it might look a little bit different, but being very intentional about, gosh, I really haven't had any time with you, for maybe your 19-year-old. And I'd love to spend some time. Hey, what time works for you today? Maybe even like with your older one, scheduling that time and seeing what time works for you, right? Just the mere fact of you going to them and saying, I really miss you and I'd love to spend some time with you. I know that I've been really busy with the little ones, and it's so important to me to be able to connect with you. Can do wonders, even just saying it, right? So I would do that for the older one. And for the little one, it's, again, it's the same thing. It's being as intentional as you can, getting down and playing, inviting the 1-year-old to join you sometimes with the toddler, having the toddler help you with the little one. And I would just say doing your best to notice and acknowledge and engage in the best way that you can. I don't know if your toddler sleeps or takes a nap.
Yeah. Yes, they right now it's kind of a little wonky, but the toddler and the 1-year-old, they nap at the same time. And I've actually only done one nap with the younger one, which is a whole nother source of mom guilt, but just to put them in the same block so that I can have like a moment.
Yeah. And that's great. So that's important that when they're napping, that you're taking some time for yourself, and maybe there's even like 20 minutes, 15 to 30 minutes carved out for your 19-year-old. And that might be a great time to connect. So I would say that, listen, honestly, there's no right answer here. There's really not. And each day is probably going to look differently. And I think as long as you can just kind of think in yourself, okay, how can I create some time today? Or when you see your 1-year-old just sitting there playing nicely, just go over and, give them a big hug and say, oh, I love you so much, or it's just that acknowledgement. And I would just say, do your best. There's no right answer. Be kind to yourself, be gentle with yourself. Some days you're going to be able to just rock it, and other days you're not. And it's okay to not always be okay. That's what I would say.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So we're slowly coming to the end of our hour, and I don't see any additional questions, but if anybody wants to sneak in one more question.
I would say while we're waiting for a question to come in, I do think it's really, really important, parents, and this goes for you, this goes for me, this goes for all of us, is just the importance of being kind and gentle with ourselves, I think. And so many parents that I work with and that I'm talking to, we're being and putting so much pressure on ourselves. I mean, suddenly we became homeschooler and doctor and dentist and teacher and playmate. And I mean, it's impossible for us to take on all these roles, right? So I think that it's important that we have realistic expectations of ourselves. We're doing the very, very best we can with the skills and the tools that we have. So I think that it's important to allow ourselves and give ourselves permission to let go where we can let go. So I told you I have older kids right now, and screen time is probably our biggest battle. There's a lot of letting go happening in my house right now. I mean, they're on screens way more than I would like. And I have to be okay with that for the time being, right? The situation is not going to last forever. We know that there will at some point be an end point. And I think for right now, we really just have to spend time focusing on taking care of ourselves, being compassionate with ourselves, knowing that, we are all in this together. We are all struggling with some very, very similar things. So I think the importance of, and that's why what I love, like when Amy said that we were going to do this, I said, oh, I love that because it just creates such a sense of community. So I hope if nothing else, you were able to get out of this, that you are not alone, that we are all struggling here. I do this for a living, and I'm still struggling with this, right? Because there's really no rules. This is such an unprecedented time that we're in. So please, please, sweet parents, I just want you to be kind and gentle with yourselves. It's okay if things don't go great one day. We always have the opportunity to try again. We always have the opportunity for a do-over. I think that's also a beautiful thing to teach and model for our kids, especially when they kind of come at us in that disrespectful tone, right? To be able to say, let's try that again. I think we need a do-over here. Or when you lose it, or you make a mistake and you yell and you wish you hadn't, to be able to say, you know what, I'm so sorry that I yelled at you like that. That wasn't okay. That wasn't kind. And next time I need to take a deep breath and go into the other room, or I need to take a deep breath and take a break. I love you and I'm sorry. Right? So it's all about what we model. Our kids really learn how to manage and regulate their emotions by how we manage ours. So doesn't mean we need to be perfect. No such thing. Thankfully, our kids don't need us to be perfect. That's a lot to live up to. They really just need us to show up for them in a really intentional way, being curious about what their needs and feelings are, because it's the needs and feelings that often underlie the behavior. So getting curious about that, slowing down, and really trying to understand life from their perspective. And I think that's really where we can gain a lot more connection and a lot more cooperation. So those are my parting words for those of you who maybe were thinking about some of that.
I just want to say thank you so much for saying that, because that's what I've been trying to learn over the last few weeks, is that grace for myself. And my first day back was the first day that everything shut down from maternity leave. So it's been a very weird transition, but that grace is huge, because we see things all over on social media and TV about how people are baking sourdough bread and learning languages and, you know, like doing all of these home projects. And I am just trying to get by each day. And even messages about, at the end of all of this, as a society, how are we going to be better as a human race? And even that gives me anxiety, because I'm just trying to, like, you know, have my kid brush her teeth, like Rebecca was saying. And so I just want to say thank you for saying that, because I think we're all in such different places. Yeah. And it is okay to just get by and appreciate the little joys and not try to change everything about yourself or lose 50 pounds or whatever it is. Like, just
I mean, we're all pretty much in survival mode. And thank you for saying that. I'm glad that spoke to you. I like to call it grace over guilt. Yeah. Right. So I think that is really, really important. And yeah, I mean, I know when I first saw all those schedules and routines come out, the color coded, and I got overwhelmed, right? So I think it's okay to be really stressed and happy at the same time. It doesn't mean that, like, we can't feel more than one emotion at one time. But I think the fact that just honoring where we are, wherever that may be, is really important for ourselves, because that's what creates us. That's what creates authentic being in this world. And so, yeah, just give yourself permission to be wherever you are. And if you don't learn a new language and bake sourdough bread, so be it. Right? Like, it's okay.
Thank you, Debbie. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I've put on here our resource page for more information. If you want to contact Debbie and continue this conversation, you can reach out to her through these many ways. She's also recommended some readings here that just kind of go more into positive discipline and the ideas behind it. We've listed some web resources as well. I hope these can be helpful. Again, we will have this presentation on our website in the next few days. And you'll see our website here. If you want to stay connected, you want to send more questions to Debbie if they come up, you know, an hour from now, we can get them to her, or we can help connect you to her through education@thinkplaycreate.org. So just reach out to us via email. And finally, if you want to join us again next Tuesday, which I hope you will, we will have another True Tuesday, this time with Tomoko Kuta, who is our Deputy Museum Director. She will be looking at works of art with participants and using the visual thinking strategies. So do you see what I see? It's a very relaxing experience. So I encourage
different
you.
from this. Yeah. And then I just want to give a shout out to everybody who, shared comments in the chat box. Thank you so much. We're getting a lot of go moms with lots of exclamation points. So really, Debbie, thank you. Amy, thank you so much. And yeah, it's great. Thank you for your comments and questions.
Thank you again, all of you. Amy, especially, thank you for inviting me. This was such a pleasure. As Amy said, my information is there. If you want to reach out, I really encourage you to do so. You can find me on Facebook. I do offer private coaching if you have some questions you want to dive a little bit deeper into. I also recently launched a Facebook group, kind of new to the whole Facebook group thing, but it's called Becoming an Empowered Parent. So I invite you to reach out. I spend a lot of time there. And so I'd love to just see you and stay connected with you and hear how things are going. And I just wish you the best. I saw somebody in the chat who said that, us parents, we're superheroes. You guys are all superheroes in your own way. So just own it. Own it. And thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Debbie. And thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of the day.
Bye.
You too.